when conscription was done back in World War II, I think we didn't have access to information in the world like we do now. In this era, we have such a plethora of information that people are now starting to wake up and go, hang on a second, war is more about politics than it is defending our borders.
We got a lot of comments coming through.
Despite what the Western media would like you to believe about Russia,
they're always rushing to get somewhere.
As far as their, in terms of the conflict with Ukraine, Russia's banks are making record profits.
Gee, I wonder why.
They made a record $36.8 billion in profit last year.
It's all the oligarchs like sending money out of Russia and they're copping fees and charges and all that.
That's about 3.3 trillion rubles. And the central bank of Russia is really surprised by this. It was driven by demand for mortgages and loans to finance large business acquisitions.
Right.
Russia's rolled out discount mortgages last year, supporting its sanctions-hit economy. You've noticed, that Russia has been partly with its government funding families to get them into houses as well. So
imagine that, a government actively taking control on the cost of living. Oh, gee, I just wonder what countries could do with that.
Mortgage lending rose nearly 35% from a year ago, and Russians are rushing to buy home, no pun intended, on state-backed subsidized mortgage rates at the central bank. And they've been winding down the discounted mortgage program. This is really, really fascinating where this is going. So dig a little bit deeper. I think they were really well prepared for this conflict, and it might stretch out for longer than
I think
most
you're right.
would hope so. And
unfortunately,
they've got funds rolling in for it. So, yeah.
Could this have a lot also, am I just spitballing here, but could this have a lot to do with the Brexit situation as well? The Brexit, wrong thing. So BRICS situation rather, with the fact that they're now tying things to gold, the alliances with other nations. Could that be?
I think that would certainly definitely help them in relation to that. A lot of the country's growth as well is being attributed to massive military and government spending.
Okay.
Obviously, the military spending,
we know where that's going.
Yeah, they're going to need food. They're going to need people on the line. They're going to need their troops, medical supplies. There is concern from the central bank there that they run the risk of overheating, and both consumer and corporate lending growth are expected to slow this year as it that'll affect the hitting the profits. But they've weathered it really well. They've gotten through from an economic perspective.
Got to remember who's their leader.
Yeah,
Putin. He's someone who's very decisive, very on the ball. I think Putin is a lot more intelligent and financially savvy than what people give him credit for.
Oh, no question.
Do I support what he's doing? No, I think the war's stupid and it's retarded. I still think it's NATO's fault for the war, and they shouldn't have done that. And it's the everyday people are going to suffer from it. But I can't see what Ukraine's doing to support financially their citizens versus you look at what the Russians are doing to support their citizens, and it's like,
well, I'm not going to agree with you on any part of that. I actually, although I don't like people dying, because I don't like people dying, I don't like war, full stop. But I do understand exactly why Russia have done what they did.
Yeah, I understand why.
NATO, right? The West is effectively trying to take away
the war, not
Russia. They
Russia.
are exactly right. They're taking away that buffer zone. The whole idea of NATO and the whole idea of Ukraine existing was Ukraine to be that buffer zone between East and West, right? Okay, so the whole premise of NATO is now currently a lie.
Yeah.
Okay. It is just
Australia's part of NATO.
Exactly. But
which I don't know why.
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing is what it is. So from that point of view, I can see the Russians, look, they're protecting their sovereignty. Exactly what we talk about so often. The Ukraine, I'm sorry, and I know some Ukrainian people, and they're awesome people. Again, let's separate the politics. Just wait a moment. Separate the politics and the people, right? Because they're very different things. My Ukrainian friends are awesome people, but the reality is the politics in Ukraine has basically, the country has become nothing but a money laundering center for a very long time and a sex trade center for a very long time. Okay, it has become very much the black market there for so many of these politicians in the West who want to launder money.
Especially
Let's be very real about
Biden.
this.
Well, it's really interesting, isn't it, to see the economic responses of both nations. You've got Zelensky running around doing fundraising for how many years, and you need to give more, you need to give more, we need to give more.
Especially in
and Russia's recording profits here with their centralized, that takes their centralized bank by surprise.
Yeah.
So you see the contrast here.
It's horrendous.
And
I love the fact that Russia's turned around going, right, if you're trying to block us from this one system, fine, we'll get out, we'll do it in a different way. So they've been, again, very proactive. Like, I have to give them credit for the way they've handled this. I don't think the campaign into Ukraine was done very well. I think running out of fuel is a stupid thing considering how much fuel they actually generate. But in the level of economic control, what they've done, I think they've done a really good job. But I also think if Trump was the president of America, I don't think the war would have never have happened in the first place. So
my point is this: dig deeper. Look at what's actually going on, as opposed to the propaganda that's being discussed here. This has been reported by BusinessInsider.com. But yeah, it's really important to bear that in mind. Things are not always as they appear, particularly in terms of reporting on war. It's so ladled with propaganda, and you've got to bear that in mind.
Thoroughly agree with that. All right. Well, look, this is, again, we always talk about the way that politics and finance cross, and that's a very, very good example of that.
I just hate the fact that a lot of politicians in Australia are blaming cost of living on the war in Ukraine.
That's ridiculous.
When I think you came up, it was like
it's insulting to our intelligence.
3% or something of our GDP was actually from imports from Ukraine or something. Like the level of trade that we have is dismal. Like it's nothing.
Yeah.
So, and everything that they're saying is causing the cost of living, we generate ourselves anyway. So why the hell are we sending, for example, our oil and fuel? Why are we sending that offshore to get processed? Why don't we keep a certain amount in Australia for Australians to use and export our surplus rather than using it as a source of income?
If you're going to go on that front, what is, I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but the price of oil as far as crude is quite reasonable. And I'll invert those comments at the moment compared to historic levels. But look at what we're paying at the pump. Look at even
what are you paying at the pump at the moment?
Well, really depends. But I'm going to say
I feel like with diesel,
right? About 190 a litre is kind of the average.
So I was driving past a Shell petrol station. It was like 199.9 for diesel.
Sure.
There's a new company in WA called Burke. So at $1.79 a litre.
There you go.
So how come they're 20 cents a litre cheaper?
I paid $1.52 the other day.
Yeah,
I know where you made. I know exactly where you made that.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, there are better alternatives, and this goes back to the show that we were recording for Freedom Fridays about Woolworths price gouging and all that sort of stuff. You don't have to shop at the major supermarkets. You can shop at other places. You don't have to stick to the major corporations.
You don't, and I don't. I go to the small places. My fruit and veg comes from independents or markets or whatever.
Fruit and veg. Who eats that? No.
I buy it. I put it.
It's funny because I live with a vegetarian.
I buy it and put it in the fridge, you know. But yeah, there are alternatives, and you know what? I don't get me wrong. I still go to the majors for some things. Unfortunately, that's I'm not good at hunting, so I've got to go and do these sorts of things. But ultimately, I try and buy my meat from independent butchers. I try and buy my veggies from independents as well. It can be done. It can be done quite well.
We've had a very interesting question come through from Damien. It's on screen at the moment.
Yep.
Okay. TikTok is asking about World War III, for example, conscription.
Yes, good point.
Thoughts about conscription?
We touched on this on the Freedom Friday show last week.
I actually like this one because I don't mind it actually.
See,
because I think
that's because you have daughters, mate.
Yeah.
I think they should be going to the military as well. And no, I've got a boy coming. So just for the people listening at home, yes, Luana's pregnant. That's why we sent her to Vietnam now, because it's like a family tradition thing. They go back to see their ancestors out the family temple.
I think what we're finding now, when conscription was done back in World War II, I think we didn't have access to information in the world like we do now. In this era, we have such a plethora of information that people are now starting to wake up and go, hang on a second, war is more about politics than it is defending our borders.
We got a lot of comments coming through.
All right. I thoroughly agree with that.
So I think people are tired of their lives being dictated to them by public servants who have their own self-interest at heart, as opposed to the interests of the nation. I mean, you've got to look at this too. I mean, why did Australia go to war in World War I? And why do we, it
was
was
allied to England.
I know that, but that was England's war, right?
No, it was ours because we're allies. We were signed up to a mutual defense.
On the other side of the world, they had
what Turkish man had offended an Australian, right?
Yep.
Back in those days.
No, I get that, but we had a legal obligation.
I understand that. Again, it was politics.
Should we just cancel our legal obligations?
Yep. Okay, so this is a great point of the debate. And this is where people are waking up and going, hang on a second, do I want my child to go fight a war that's all about politics?
No, absolutely
And who's
not.
pulling the strings here? I mean, we've just been talking about, is NATO the one picking the fight with Russia?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Who's NATO made up of, and who's controlling NATO? Okay. Yep. So this is the thing that we're discussing here in terms of it's going deeper, and we're in an era where we're seeing more organizations rather than countries going to war.
It's getting to the point where wars will not be fought by humans on the front line. It's going to be drones. It's going to be cyborgs and all that sort of stuff. So the war for the actual physical human casualties for the soldiers is going to get less and less. It's going to be more and more about civilian casualties.
Doesn't matter. Those droids can affect humans and target humans, right?
So the reason I'm supportive of conscription is the military is like in Australia is one of the last bastions of maleness, and everything else is getting woke and queer and whatever.
No, they're ruining the military.
It is also going there, but at this stage, it is still. They can still teach the younger generations the difference between a man and a woman and teach men masculine things because schools have given up on that. Universities have given up on that.
Yep.
You try and bring that into a workforce, you don't get fired, sent off to HR and all that sort of shit.
Okay, let's throw another.
From that perspective, I think conscription is good.
Okay.
So especially how they do it in Italy, they do it in a lot of the Asian countries where once you finish, you turn 18, you have to spend 2 years in the military.
So you're okay for your daughters to get the mandated vaccine to be in the military?
I'm not. Okay, so good. That's a different issue. Again.
No, it's not a different issue because it's called conscription. It's against your will.
That's right.
And so are the mandates, vaccination. This is you have to go fight, right? So keep that in mind. Now, conscription equals mandate.
Absolutely. Now, I have several mates who are in the forces who I respect massively, who are manly men, who that they have gone in there for the best of intentions, best of reasons, all of that, and they do the right thing by this country, and I love them for it. Now, several of them have talked to me about the destruction of the military from the inside out and what is happening at the moment. It is real. They are feminizing it. They are destroying it. Yep. They are, and you know what? My opinion is, okay, if women want to fight, women should be able to fight. So I've got no issue with that. Okay. I mean, I know that Hillary Clinton once said that, of course, that the main victims of war are women and their children. And of course, Hillary was always bang on. She didn't even consider the 99.8% of casualties being men. Small issue, right? Okay. So, but I think, look, if you want to go and join the military, either gender, in fact, a friend who's a woman who's in the military as well, that's fine. I don't think conscription is fair. I don't think it's right. I think I put it down with mandates, exactly that. You should not be forced to do something you do not wish to do. I understand what you're saying about national service. I get that. That's a different thing.
But here's the thing, right? We engage the army in war to do violent things for us and to defend us and to keep us safe at night.
Correct. Yep.
And that's what's happening there.
Yeah.
We aren't supporting our veterans with post-trauma.
No way. Not at all.
And correctly, right? So the cost of going to war is not just life.
Correct.
But it's the life of the individual who returns who's broken in their mental capacities, right?
Yep. And physical as well.
There is also a phenomena going on. You've highlighted about the wokeness that's entered into the military that in the eyes of enemies weakens us as a country. We saw this in the United States. I said this on international television. You think generals wake up caring about what pronouns they're going to use and defend each day?
It's ridiculous.
Why are they bringing that into the military? The job is a messy job.
No.
It's about discipline, and it's about you are allowing someone to go in and kill on your behalf. That's right. What the army and that's what the military forces do.
Sure.
So there's more comments. Like I said, you triggered a flood. I'd gladly fight for Australia soil to defend my country, but I'd prefer to go to jail than fight on a foreign soil. So that the elites can cover up the world. So I agree with that. The national conscription isn't to defend other countries. I still think Australia should be focusing on Australian soil and on Australian issues. We've got too many issues here to be fucking around over in other countries.
That's right.
So
I will fight to death, and I have absolutely no issue with this. I'm absolutely happy to fight to death and lose my life to save this country and my children's future. Yeah, but I'm not doing it in the Ukraine. So I'm not doing it on somebody else's border. I'm doing it here.
So our emergency services are always overrun. So this is something that I did. I think in America they've got the National Guard, where if there's like an emergency or something, the National Guard can come in and help out. Sure. We don't really have anything like that. We got the Army Reserves, but that's like a little bit limp-wristed. No, it's not. They're weekend warriors. So I'd like to have a standby. Something like let's call it National Guard or National whatever, where you've got a good 10 to 20,000 people across the country who can out at a moment's notice go, right, you know what, there's been a tsunami here, there's been a flood here. They can go out and they actually get shit done.
That's what your reserves do. That's exactly what they do.
How many reserves?
And that's what the SES do.
Yeah, but how many of them are there?
There's quite a number.
No,
certainly, I think no. I've got know a lot of people in the SES, and the work that they do is fantastic.
It is fantastic. So this isn't a beat up on the SES.
I know it's not.
It's just they're massively underfunded, understaffed, undervolunteered. They don't have the resources that they need, where the military does. So that's why I'm saying, like, a lot of these things that are just all like, oh, we need something like this, so let's just put it together. It hasn't really been thought out. That the budget hasn't been allocated for it. It hasn't been done properly. By having a offshoot of the military, so using the national consignment for a year or two after school. So these are all 18 to 24-year-old strong, healthy people, and as I said, people, not men, because it should be for women and for guys. So to learn how to change a tire, how to fix a car, how to put a ratchet strap onto a trailer, how to pull a car that's bogged, how to get it out of the ground, how to tow a car safely. How many people under the age of 30 know how to safely tow a car?
How many of them know how to drive a bloody manual? I mean, come on.
So all these life skills should be taught to them by the military. They shouldn't be there to be like the World War One or two. I think it was First World War when they had the national conscription and they did everything by date of birth. You were literally conscripted into the military, then shipped off for a war. Sure. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about putting to learn basic skills that are no longer being taught in everyday life.
Okay. Well, you know what? That falls back to parents, and that falls back to the
destruction of the education system and destruction of the family court.
Spot on.
Yep.
Yeah. So. You know what? Because if I know that for a lot of little boys and girls still had dads at home, they'd grow up much better people who could change tires and things like that.
Josh came up with a great idea. National service in the emergency services is a great idea.
Oh, I like that.
I actually do genuinely like that. Yeah. Instead of doing conscription into the military, you can do national service as SAS.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So,
yeah. We need to get out of our headspace that somebody else will be there to look after us.
Yep.
That you can rely on governments and other organizations to be there for you. That basically you really need to get back into your life purpose if you're not living that, and go, what is it that I got to do for myself, for my family? And it's not a selfish thing. It's actually a contribution to the community. The world needs you to do your life assignment, your life purpose, right? And it's about that. With all the chaos going in the world, I'm super excited about what's happening. There is a big wealth transfer happening at the moment.
I'm glad that you're excited. Most of us are terrified, but okay.
It's got to disrupt the evil.
Terrifying, Aaron.
Thanks, mate.
To disrupt the evil, it's got to get bumpy.
I joke about it. Like, okay, you got to crack eggs to make an omelet.
But we are seeing things improve. Look,
we are.
2 years ago, I said this to you. I said, Aaron, it's going to get better. And you're like, I really hope so. Remember that line?
Yes.
And look what's been happening in Europe with the farmers rising up and taking their rights back. You know, and this has been going on for decades. He's trying to encroach on them. Look what's happening in the United States, right? In terms of the Texas border, and people are taking their rights back. It's phenomenal what is going on. It's exciting what is going on, because it'll have a domino effect on the other nations around the world. Absolutely. When these nations take their power back, you know, it'll have an effect on Australia. But we've got to do that for ourselves as well. We've got to be independent. We've got to be creative. We've got to be
personal responsibility.
Yeah,
it's what we've got to do.
And we as a nation determine where we're going, where is our future, rather than leaving that decision to someone else.